Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for your time. Greetings from Toronto. Okay, wonderful, wonderful documentary. Honestly, didn't know that I would need a box of Kleenex next to me, but there you go. Marlee, I'd like to start with you. You gave us a wonderful autobiography. Oh, yeah, I guess it's our 15 years ago. I learned a lot about you, but I learned way more from this film. So I wanted to ask you, going through this process, was it difficult, cathartic, and why now? Why now give us something on screen?
Well, when I wrote the book, I wrote it in mind with, I wrote it with a very sort of open approach. I wrote it with Betsy Sharkey together, and she's a wonderful writer. And what we did is we just collaborated together, but at the same time, I understood that I had to have a third person involved because we had to use an interpreter, which is fine. At the time, it worked. But when American Masters approached me to say, hey, we'd like to do a story about you for our show. And I thought, okay, first of all, we have to have a deaf woman do this as a director because we share similar life experiences. And I thought, well, now we're talking about not in print, but on film. We're not talking about the printed word. We're now talking about, I mean, it's fine. Listen, it's my voice, so to speak, in a printed word. But on film, with a camera, with the two of us, you'd get a more authentic telling of it would be a more authentic telling of my voice, you see, because it's through my hands. And so understanding that during the whole process with the conversations that I was having with Shoshannah, the difference between having a conversation with her and all the previous conversations I've had in my life experiences, was immense. I noticed it immediately that I was much more at home, so
Sure.
to speak, because we're having a conversation with my and through my language. There was no third person, there was nobody translating for me. It was very transparent, it was clear, and Shoshannah made me feel, well, she let me feel. She didn't make me feel whatever
Yeah.
she was asking me. She didn't put me in, she didn't try to get me. I was accustomed perhaps like that in previous interviews.
Yeah.
So I was allowed to move forward in my own pace. It was like I was like in my own platform. I was allowed to just free associate, and I'm the type of person who doesn't shy away from sharing my
Yes.
experiences
Yes.
as long as it comes from me.
Right. Yeah.
So that is that conversation having with Shoshannah allowed me to freely express myself. And I don't want to speak for her, but I think the editing might have been difficult for her where she had to really decide, okay, what is it that we're going to, archive to use in this film? I mean, because and that wasn't for me to decide.
Yeah.
And the reason why I bring that up is because we just talked about everything. Whatever it was that I was feeling at the moment, at that time of a conversation, I just brought it forth.
Yeah. Thank you. Shoshana, congratulations. Beautiful documentary, as I said. Wonderful job. But let's jump on what Marlee just said. And I was going to ask you that. So first off, I can't imagine that the first time you even met together, you didn't become besties. Like I can't imagine not anybody not wanting to be best friends with Marlee Matlin. I do. So that's one thing. But secondly, when you've got all this amazing footage, you've got all the interviews, you've got her family, the plethora of everything. Where do you even start? I mean, how daunting was this? That had to have been a lot of pressure.
Well, first, thank you so much for your kind words. I felt like well, yes, it's my first time directing this. It's my first time directing a documentary.
Yeah.
And I have been in this business for over 20 years now.
Mhm.
I know well, I knew what I was up against. I know how many people it takes to say yes to a project, for a project to happen. I know, and I knew what people were going to say as a reason why this might not work. I know what words people typically use to say those things. A lot of reasons for that, like a lot of my knowledge is because I have seen Marlee do this. I've seen what she's been up against.
Yeah.
There are a lot of clips of Marlee in interviews. We have a lot of footage that has just lived in my mind for a long time because I watched it as a child. And so when I started working with our archivist, I could tell my archivist these specific moments that I was looking for.
Mm.
I would say, hey, these exact phrases that I used to see on pages that I wanted, or like, I remember this person said this or had said it this way, and their hair looked a certain way, or their
Wow.
shirt was worn a certain way. All these things I realized was how the world saw me too. And that was what I was up against because that's what Marlee went through. It's not the way that I saw myself necessarily, and it's not the way that I experienced the world, but it is the way that people have decided that we do. And so I knew, yes, I'm up against a lot, but I also believed that I had this really exciting opportunity to reframe things and to show the world the way that Marlee and I experience it. And
Right.
if I did things the way that were typically expected, I would still be up against a lot regardless. Either way, I would
Sure.
still have people that would say, "Hey, this might be a challenge for you because you can't hear." And it's like, okay, that's fine. But I decided that I wasn't going to use the word challenge or the word pressure. Um, I decided that I was going to use the word opportunity.
Perfect.
And they're really the same thing. They're really the same meaning, just going in different directions. So, yeah.
But Shoshana, we know that Marlee is an open book. There's really nothing in this documentary that she shied or that you both shied away from. But while you were, Marlee said that she left it in your hands to do the editing, to decide at the end of the day. How much involvement did Marlee have in saying, I don't know, should we do that? Shouldn't we do that?
I said no 99% of the time. No, no, no. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I know, I know.
No, that would have happened if I was involved with the editing process. If I was involved, I chose not to be, however. Not like I had any choice. I don't. I'm not a producer. I'm just the subject of this documentary. However, I understood how important it was, but yet I knew that Shoshannah would more likely than not be able to. I mean, if I had wanted to be involved, are you using this person? Do you mind not using this idea? What is your plan? She probably would have shared that with me,
Mm,
whatever it was that I asked not to share or share. Whatever she wanted to do, I knew that it would be fine. But the bottom line was, I never asked her to ask to be involved in any part of the editing process, in any part of the creative process. I just looked away. I let
yeah,
her do her thing. I let her do her job. I let her be creative. I didn't get involved in any way. I didn't stop her vision. And that's why I said 99% of the time I probably would have eliminated myself and made her life hell.
yeah. Yes. It's
So
hard to watch yourself.
that's why personally I just said,
Yeah.
that's why I said personally, let it go.
Let it
Let it
go.
go.
Yeah.
Let it go. And let her do
Yeah.
her thing. Because I knew I would do, there's only one thing that I asked her not to do. One thing.
Okay.
Because it happened that day of the filming, which was I asked her, or I texted her, would you mind not using me signing a song in the car? And I
It's,
thought,
yeah, she said, don't put it in the
it's
film.
very, very personal. It's a very personal space for me because people don't know that I can do that, or I've seen me do that.
That's cool.
So I said, do I want to share this with the world? And I'm able to sign to Billy Joel, as you saw. So I thought,
Yes.
you know what? I thought, I just want to keep that for myself. And then as we got close to the film being locked,
Yeah.
she texted me and said, Marlee, I know you asked me not to use the footage. And I said, yeah, you're right. She said the reasons or what she planned to do with the footage for the end, she had a connection that she wanted to make. So she explained, and I thought, you know what? That makes sense. Okay. That's the only decision I got involved in on Shoshannah's part. So
What's
I asked the names of my parents and my brother-in-law also to be included at the end of the dedication.
yes.
Those are the only two things I asked for. I didn't
I'm
order.
glad I'm glad
I
that
didn't
was left
order.
in. Yeah. Yeah.
Am I
Shoshannah.
right?
Oh,
Am
I'm
I right,
sorry.
Shoshannah? What, am I right, Shoshannah? I said, am I right what I just said?
Yes. Yeah, that was the one thing. She had texted me that same day, and I knew why. I mean, I knew why. I understood that it was a very vulnerable moment for her. And I said, don't worry. I didn't say, like, okay, fine, we won't put it in. And I didn't say no. I just responded by saying, don't worry. And then she's like, well, what does that mean? And I said, it means you don't have to worry.
Right.
And then when I did show her the final cut, I was like, I have a surprise for you, Marlee.
Yeah.
And then at the end, you were able to see the footage of her
Yeah.
signing the song. And we did have this really beautiful, very honest, very raw conversation afterwards. And of course, Marlee had so many questions after she had watched the final cut for the first time,
Sure.
as she should.
Yeah.
And we were able to talk through just the reasons, some of the reasons for everything. And I told her, I'm always here for you. I'm always here for you.
Yeah.
Before, after the film, like I'm always here for you. We got to talk through things, which we still do.
Yeah.
Marlee sees every time she sees the film, something new comes up for her. We always talk about why. And there's a reason for everything in the film, every second. I've watched hundreds of times, and there is a reason for everything. And I'm always able to give her the context that she needs. And so, yeah, that's been a really beautiful part of the process for me.
Okay. I have to wrap soon, but I have
That's
to
a
ask
good
these.
director.
Yes, excellent director. Perfect. Two last questions. Marlee first. I will never forget watching Coda. I still get moved thinking about that movie. It was absolutely spectacular. And all of the accolades that it well deserved, Oscars, everything. But we're not seeing a lot more productions with using deaf actors, deaf directors, et cetera, et cetera. I don't get it. When I watched this documentary and I was watching, especially your family and everything that, I don't understand why there is not more out there. Can you answer that question?
Ask Hollywood.
Yeah.
Ask those who are, the ones who make the decisions, the ones who have the power. Why?
Yeah.
Why? Are they afraid to collaborate with deaf writers, deaf directors, deaf actors, or even talk to the casting directors? But I can say there is two, I think two or three in productions right now in film that are currently filming right now that are using deaf actors. Sean Heder
Yeah. Yes.
is making a film about the life of Judy Heumann,
Yeah.
and there are two deaf actors in the film that were well known in the deaf community and beyond. And so she's using them and working with them. But overall, you're absolutely right. There
Yeah.
is not this instantaneous sort of appearances on behalf of deaf actors. I mean, there are people, Daniel Durant got work after working on Coda,
And Troy, obviously.
and Troy Kotzer, yes, but I
Yeah.
haven't worked. I haven't worked. I haven't
Right.
worked.
What's up with that?
As an actor, I mean, no.
Yeah.
Things are slowly but surely, and things are in development, what we call development hell. But no, not greenlit.
Yeah. Shoshana, what ultimately impressed you or surprised you most about the wonderful Marlee Matlin?
The depth, the depth that Marley has, and the breadth of her bravery. She has this, she's always persevering.
Mm,
Always. Her perseverance still stands strong. I think that people really don't know how hard Marlene's been working and how hard she works. I thought I knew, but just the depth, she's vast. I mean, she really does everything. And she does everything for other people. It's about her, but it's more about really seeing big picture. She's great at that. She thinks if I do this, then it's going to open doors for other people.
yeah.
And that's something that people still don't know about her. She really does think about the collective rather than the individual. And I feel like there is a lack of that right now in today's world, today's society. And that is really moving to see. Just to see someone who does, continue to do that in their life.
Yeah. And one last question, Marlee. I was so moved by so many aspects of this documentary, but what really stuck with me was when you went to your brother's home for dinner and you were sitting on the couch and everybody's having the conversation and you're like, I can't hear you. Like, and I made me think about your family and I wanted to know at the end of the day, what were their reactions after seeing this documentary? Your daughter, your brothers, and now you're a grandmother, Mazel tov for that. And how you will relate to your granddaughter going forward too.
Thank you for the Mazel Tov wishes for my granddaughter. She's a delicious piece of my life.
I'm going to be a grandmother in 2 months, first time.
Oh, wonderful. Yay.
Very
Great.
excited.
Nothing like it.
Yeah,
Uh, and Mazel Tov.
thank you.
I can't really speak for my family, really,
Mm,
but I can share just a little bit of the experience of their reactions when they saw the film. I think, believe, only seen it one time. Like me watching it for the first time, everything was a blur. I
mm,
remember the first time watching it, it was a blur, seeing everything for the first time on the screen, trying to take it all in. Everything sort of flowing over me, not, whether we're talking about memories or questions, every little frame of the film, trying to, analyze what was going on. But when I was with both of my brothers, I, in all honesty, was not surprised how they felt.
mm,
They they were just trying to be civil with me. And by that I mean they had certainly questions and they certainly were puzzled why I would sign the word board. And they had no idea why I said that. They probably still don't because we haven't had the conversation to follow up on this yet.
mm.
They'll probably see the movie again, I think, this week. So I'm not going to push them to, like, let's talk
Sure.
at this time. I guess when they're ready, they'll talk. But I think why they were taken back by many things that they probably weren't necessarily, in clue with. I mean, yes, they did about language deprivation, for example. Yes, they knew about that. I understand what was going on in the family dynamics, whether we were talking about dinner or family get-togethers. But the depth of that being presented on the screen was shocking to them. And I wanted to say to them or explain to them that it's just not me that this happens to. This is something that happens to what Shoshannah says, 90 to 95% of deaf people who come from hearing families.
Right.
And they are not at fault. It's the system that creates this, that feeds them what it is they should do without an understanding on their part of how it is to communicate with deaf daughters, siblings, whatever you're talking about.
Mm,
So I'm looking forward, in answer to your question, having an in-depth conversation. And to say in almost all of my conversations, as I said in all my interviews, this is part of a healing process for me.
for sure. Yeah. Well, I thank you all for your time today. I literally could sit and talk to you for another 2 hours, but I'm sure there's other people. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciated this documentary. It's beautiful. And please, all of you, come visit me here in Toronto, and then we can talk for longer, okay?
Sounds good.
All right. Thank
And
you.
Thank
if it's a girl, if
It is a
you're
girl. It is a girl. I know. It is a girl.
Shoshannah and Marlee are good names.
Yeah, I'll let my son know that for sure. We'll put it on the list. Yeah, it could work. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
you.